Hi everyone, it's Katie from Paradise Falls family. In this video we'll be continuing our Canada and Alaska series looking at Vancouver, the final stop on our road trip. It's a city we've visited before and we really love it here. We only had one night, but I'll talk through our hotel and how we spent our day. We've done another vlog on our previous trip to Vancouver that goes into a bit more detail on the city and what you can get up to, and you can find that already on our channel. We began our road trip with 3 nights in Calgary, followed by 3 more in Canmore, 2 in Golden and 1 in Kamloops, all of which I've talked through in our last few vlogs. We finished by driving from Kamloops across to Vancouver for our final night before boarding our Alaskan cruise. The drive over to Vancouver from Kamloops takes around 3.5 to 4 hours, coming in on the Trans-Canada Highway. The scenery of course was lovely, but did flatten out a little more in this section of the drive, and approaching Vancouver was the only portion of the trip where we had any traffic. We did make a fairly quick stop in Chilliwack for a McDonald's and a Walmart shop, so the whole journey took around 5.5 hours in the end, arriving at around 1:30 in the afternoon, so don't underestimate how long this drive can take. The main thing we wanted to do in Vancouver this time was Grouse Mountain. This was shut last time we were here as it was between seasons, so it was top of our list this time. Grouse Mountain sits across the bay from the city centre. You can walk up it and do what's called the Grouse Grind, or you can get the cable car up and enjoy all the attractions and activities at the top, with amazing views down to the city and surrounding area. As we'd been delayed, on arriving in the city we headed straight to Grouse Mountain, through the city and across the Lionsgate Bridge, parking up easily. There's a little centre at the bottom of the mountain with a Starbucks, gift shop and restrooms. Then obviously the cable car station. We'd pre-booked tickets on their website for around $200 for the 4 of us and were able to walk straight on. The gondola was pretty busy with quite a lot of people on, so you don't necessarily get to enjoy the views on the way up and it's standing room only. But it was quick and easy. I think you can even ride on the top of the cable car in some situations, but we never looked into this for us. It is cooler up at the top, but warm with the sun out, so bring layers. It's a lovely space with a visitor centre, restaurant, shops and restrooms. There are walking trails and gardens to enjoy, but we headed straight to register for our mountain ropes or high ropes activity that again we'd pre-booked. This came to $50 per person. We did take a risk pre-booking, as if it's a foggy day you can't see a lot from the top, but we knew we'd want to go up regardless given we missed it last time, so we booked ahead to make sure we got on what we wanted. The mountain ropes activity was booked for 2:30 and we checked into the area right next to the visitor centre and cable car station. There were 4 other people on our session and we were all given our gear, a safety demonstration and taught how to navigate all of the ropes and courses. There are 4 courses you can do. 1 is an easier course meant for younger children, 1 is a harder course for adults and then 2 in the middle which I think were the green and blue courses. We had around 2 hours on the courses and could go at our own pace. To begin with, you're effectively in a line, so you're constrained by the pace of the people ahead of you, which could be a bit frustrating. But after the first course, people were able to spread out and choose their next course themselves, which really helped. We did see some of the younger kids struggle with the green and blue courses, so it's probably best to have an adult up there with them. Even our kids needed a bit of help moving the clips along the line at intersections, but Greg was up there so was able to help. You can also get stuck on the zip line if you don't quite make it across. There is a guide to help, but they're on the ground, so there's only so much they can do, so it helps if you're strong enough to pull yourself along. Our kids were 11 and 8 at the time, and able to navigate it themselves, but the younger kids ahead of us did struggle a little bit. That being said, Greg and the kids did find these courses quite hard work, more so than at the Golden Sky Bridge a few days prior, and were really tired by the end of it. They'd had lots of fun, but the courses were just that little bit more strenuous, and we were glad that Greg had gone up with the kids to help them along. Overall, they had a great time. It's in a lovely setting up in the forest, it was really safe, well organised, and we'd recommend it if you like this sort of thing. There's also ziplining that you can do up here, which we didn't have time for, but there's loads of activities to keep you busy. Back on the ground, we had a wander around the trails at the top and made our way over to see the 2 resident grizzly bears. These are kept in an enclosure here and are brilliant to see up close. They're absolutely massive, and given that these were the first bears we'd seen all trip at this point, all the more exciting. Then there was a bird show nearby that you can just walk up and enjoy. This was really interesting, showing several birds of prey, and it's worth catching if you're up here as it's included in the admission price. The other 2 main attractions up here are the second gondola, which is an open air chairlift up to the last section to the very peak of the mountain. This wasn't running when we were here. I don't know if it was too windy or too late in the day. Then there's also the lumberjack show that's one of the top things to do. We knew that we had a lumberjack show booked in Ketchikan in Alaska as part of our cruise, so we gave this a miss and did the high ropes instead. But it's supposed to be really good and it's included in the price of your ticket. With everything on offer, I think you could easily enjoy a whole day up here, so it's a great day out for all of the family. There was then time to enjoy the views, get some pictures, then it was time to head back down and sort out our rental car and check into our hotel. We made the drive back across to the airport, which is only around 25 minutes from downtown, so pretty easy. Handed the car back and then got a taxi back into the city with all of our luggage. The taxis here work on a zonal rate system, so you know what it's going to cost when you get in. For us, down by the harbour, it was around $50 or £28, so not bad at all really. As we were only staying one night and boarding a cruise the next day, we treated ourselves and booked a stay at the Pan Pacific Hotel. Last time we were here, we stayed at the Fairmont over the road and loved it, but we got a slightly better deal at the Pan Pacific, and the hotel is literally connected to the cruise terminal. So the next morning we didn't even need to leave the building if we didn't want, which was so handy. We were greeted on arrival and taken up to reception to check in. The hotel is lovely, with a massive reception and entry area, with a bar, restaurant and shops, all overlooking the dock outside, and so the next morning the cruise ship was literally docked right outside. The service was excellent, it was really welcoming and we went straight up to our room. Again, this was amazing, with views over the harbour and we could watch the boats and seaplanes coming and going. The room had 2 big double beds, loads of room for the 4 of us and our luggage, and a lovely bathroom. Everything was excellent quality and it was a real treat to stay here. We all loved it. By now we were all really tired after a long day, so we ordered some room service for dinner. This came to around $130 or £75, so not actually that bad for room service at a high-end hotel. It was a pretty good menu as well, and the food was excellent, so not a bad shout if you fancy a treat. The next morning we enjoyed a chilled morning in the hotel and had our luggage picked up by the porters. The hotel offers a brilliant service where they pick up your luggage and ensure it's loaded onto the ship, so you don't have to worry about lugging it downstairs and sorting it yourself. The recommended tip was $3 to $6 per bag, which felt reasonable and it worked brilliantly for us. The next time we saw it, it was waiting for us outside of our cruise cabin. So then it was just a case of wandering downstairs at our check-in time and following the signs to the cruise terminal and check-in. It was a lovely, easy and stress-free way to start our cruise, and we would 100% stay at the Pan Pacific again, especially if it's before a cruise. I've already covered our cruise earlier in this series, so make sure to go and check that out as it was absolutely amazing. But when we returned to Vancouver, we then had a good long half a day in the city before our flight later that evening. We were able to leave our luggage at the Pan Pacific for half a day for $5 per bag, so it was a really good service, as it's quite difficult to know what to do with your luggage after a cruise if you need to fly that night. We then weren't quite sure what to do for the rest of the day. We'd toyed with going over to the Capilano suspension bridge, as we'd enjoyed that so much on our last trip, or renting bikes and biking Stanley Park, but we didn't think we had enough time for that and didn't want to exert ourselves too much on a travel home day. In the end, we went for brunch nearby at the harbour, settling on De Dutch, and we had a great meal here for around $90 or £50. So it was a good little place to consider if you're in the area. We had a look around the harbour, seeing the Olympic cauldron and the orca statue down here, and then decided we'd head over to the Vancouver Aquarium. Again, this was somewhere we hadn't managed to fit in on our last visit, and we'd heard good things, and given the weather wasn't great, it seemed like a pretty good option. It was just a cheap Uber ride from the harbour across to the aquarium, which sits in the middle of Stanley Park. We bought tickets on the door for about $190 or £110, which felt a bit expensive, but probably worth it for what we wanted to do. It was a rainy Sunday, so the aquarium was pretty jam-packed, but we still enjoyed a fun few hours here. By far the best area was the outdoor attractions with the otters, seals and sea lions. We loved watching the sea lions play despite the rain and could have spent ages here. There's also a cool underwater viewing area, so don't miss this. They do have feeding sessions and demonstrations at different times of the day, but these didn't fit very well with our visit. Inside, the area is split over a couple of floors, which we did initially find confusing to navigate, so pay attention to the map to find your way around. There's various typical exhibits which are all really well done, and there's a really impressive shark tank, but this was incredibly busy given how busy the aquarium was on this day. The jellyfish and rainforest exhibits were also very good, and it was a fun way to spend a few hours. We were going to spend a bit of time in the park and playground nearby, but it was pretty wet by now, so we decided we'd do a bit of shopping in the Pacific Centre Mall in downtown. Again, we'd been here on our last visit, so knew our way around fairly well, and we did some window shopping and got some last treats at Purdy's, our favourite chocolate shop here. Then it was time to pick up our luggage, and we killed some time in the bar at the Pan Pacific, having a few drinks and snacks. And with that, it was time to head to the airport. Again, the taxi was really easy, the airport was great, and we got some burgers and fries to see us through the flight. It was a lovely last day to what was a wonderful trip that we'll always remember. We absolutely love Canada. It's such a brilliant destination for a family holiday, and we're already planning another trip back in the next few years. So that brings us to the end of this series, covering our Alaska and Canada trip. If there's anything you want to ask about any part of our trip, then please let us know in the comments below. Next up will be some vlogs covering our amazing Hong Kong trip. If you like this video, please give it a like, as it really makes a big difference to the channel. In the meantime, if you've got any questions or any other tips, just let us know in the comments below. Thank you all so much for watching.